When I was a teenager, the old carnival came to our town every summer. It was full of bright lights, fun rides, and delicious food. But one year, something felt different. It was late on a Friday night when my friends Jake and Lisa convinced me to go. The air was warm, and the smell of popcorn mixed with the faint scent of something rotting. The carnival seemed quieter than usual, with fewer people wandering around. The music sounded strange, slower, and distorted, like an old record player. As we walked around, we noticed an old tent at the edge of the carnival, far away from the main attractions. The sign above it read, "The Haunted Funhouse." I had never seen it before, and neither had Jake or Lisa. It looked run down, with faded paint and torn curtains. But something about it drew us in. "Let's check it out," Jake said, already heading toward the entrance. I hesitated. "Are you sure? It looks kind of off." "Come on, it's just a fun house." "How bad could it be?" Lisa added, following Jake. Against my better judgment, I joined them. The door creaked open as we stepped inside. The funhouse was dimly lit, with flickering lights casting strange shadows on the walls. The air felt cold, and a musty smell filled the room. We walked through narrow hallways lined with crooked mirrors. The mirrors made our reflections twist and stretch into weird shapes. At first we laughed at how silly we looked, but the deeper we went, the more unsettling it became. In one mirror, I saw a dark figure standing behind me. I spun around, but no one was there. My heart started to race. "Did you guys see that?" I asked, my voice shaking. "See what?" Jake replied, not taking me seriously. "Nothing, I guess," I muttered, trying to brush it off. We continued through the funhouse, but the strange occurrences kept happening. We heard whispers that seemed to come from the walls, and shadows moved in the corners of our vision. At one point, the floorboards creaked as if someone was walking right behind us, but when we turned around, no one was there. We finally reached a room that looked like a clown's den. The walls were covered with peeling circus posters, and in the center stood a life-sized clown statue, its face frozen in a twisted grin. Its eyes seemed to follow us as we moved around the room. "I hate clowns," Lisa whispered, backing away from the statue. "Come on, it's just a dumb statue," Jake said, but even he looked uneasy. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out completely. We were plunged into darkness. I could hear Jake and Lisa breathing heavily beside me. "Let's get out of here," I whispered, trying to feel my way back toward the entrance. But the funhouse seemed different now. The walls felt closer, and the hallways twisted in ways they hadn't before. It was like the place was alive, trapping us inside. We stumbled through the darkness, our hands stretched out in front of us. The whispers grew louder, and strange laughter echoed around us. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears as panic set in. We had to find a way out fast. Finally, we saw a faint light ahead. We rushed toward it, desperate for an escape. The light led us back to the entrance, and we burst out of the funhouse, gasping for air. The carnival was silent now. All the lights were off, and the ride stood still. It was as if the entire carnival had shut down while we were inside. We ran back toward the main area, but there was no one around. The only sound was the wind rustling through the empty tents. What happened?" Lisa asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," I replied, trying to catch my breath. We decided to leave immediately. As we walked away from the carnival, I glanced back one last time. The funhouse was still there, its dark entrance beckoning, but now I could see faint figures standing in the shadows. They looked like the people who had entered before us, the ones who had never come out. We never spoke about that night again. The carnival didn't return the next summer, and no one in town seemed to remember it at all. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear those whispers. And I wonder if the funhouse is still out there, waiting for its next visitors. It all started when a carnival appeared out of nowhere. No one in town had seen it coming. One morning, the fields by the edge of town were empty, and by the afternoon they were filled with bright tents, flashing lights, and rides. My friends, Rachel and Sam, wanted to go right away, and though I felt uneasy, I joined them. We reached the carnival just as the sun began to set. The sky turned deep orange, and the air smelled of sweet candy and popcorn. Laughter filled the air, but it didn't feel right. It felt distant, almost like it wasn't coming from the people around us, but from somewhere else. "Let's check out the rides first," Sam said, his eyes lighting up when he saw the giant Ferris wheel. Rachel nodded eagerly. "I want to try the roller coaster." I forced a smile and followed them. The rides looked old and worn out, but they moved smoothly, almost too smoothly. There were no long lines, which seemed strange, but we didn't have to wait, so we didn't think much of it. After a few rides, we decided to explore the carnival games. We walked past the booths, all of them offering strange prizes. There were old dolls with missing eyes, antique toys and jewelry that looked rusted and dull. One game caught Rachel's attention. It was a simple ring toss, but instead of rings, the players threw small bones onto metal spikes. "I want to try this," Rachel said, already reaching for the bone. I shuddered. "Rachel, that's weird. Let's just find another game." But Rachel ignored me and tossed the first bone. It landed perfectly on one of the spikes. The carny behind the booth grinned and handed her a prize, a small, delicate necklace with a pendant shaped like a heart. As soon as Rachel put it on, she winced. "Ouch, it pricked me." She held up her hand and there was a small drop of blood on her finger. "Take it off," I said, feeling uneasy. But Rachel shook her head. "It's fine. I like it." We continued walking through the carnival, but Rachel started acting strange. She grew quiet, her usual smile fading into a blank expression. I asked her if she was okay, but she just nodded silently, not really looking at me. Sam didn't seem to notice anything was wrong, so I tried to shake off the feeling of dread building in my chest. But things only got weirder. The carnival seemed to stretch on forever. No matter which way we turned, we kept ending up back at the same spot, a large dark tent in the middle of the grounds. "Let's go inside," Sam suggested, pointing at the tent. "I don't think that's a good idea," I said. But Rachel was already heading toward it, still clutching the strange necklace around her neck. We followed her inside. The tent was dimly lit, with just a few flickering lanterns hanging from the ceiling. Inside, there was only one thing, a huge, ancient mirror with a golden frame covered in strange symbols. Rachel walked up to the mirror and stared into it. Her eyes looked distant, like she was in a trance. "Rachel?" I called out, my voice shaking. She didn't answer. Instead, she reached up and touched the mirror. The moment her fingers made contact, the mirror rippled like water, and Rachel vanished. "Rachel!" I screamed, rushing toward the mirror. But when I touched it, my hand hit solid glass. She was gone, trapped inside. Sam and I tried everything to get her out, but nothing worked. The mirror stayed cold and still, reflecting only our panicked faces. Just as we were about to give up, the carny who had given Rachel the necklace appeared behind us. He smiled that same eerie grin and said, "She's part of the carnival." "What do you mean?" Sam demanded, grabbing the man's arm. "Bring her back." The carny just laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "No one who enters the mirror ever returns. She's one of the lost souls now." We tried to fight him, but it was no use. The carny slipped away into the shadows, and we were left alone in the tent with the mirror. To this day, I don't know what happened to Rachel. Sam and I barely made it out of the carnival before it vanished as mysteriously as it had appeared. The fields were empty again, with no trace of the tents or rides. No one else in town seemed to remember the carnival at all. But I remember, and sometimes when I'm alone, I swear I can hear Rachel's voice calling out to me from somewhere far away, begging me to come back and find her. One summer evening, a strange carnival arrived in my town. It set up at the edge of the woods, far from where the other carnivals usually set up. My friends, Sarah and Mike, were excited to go, and even though I had a bad feeling, I went with them. The carnival was different from the others we'd been to before. The rides were old and creaky, and the music played slowly, like it was being played from a broken record. There weren't many people around, but the ones who were there didn't seem right. They moved slowly and didn't talk much. Their faces looked pale, almost sickly. As we walked around, we found a strange tent at the back of the carnival. The sign above it said, "The show that never ends." The entrance was dark, and the red curtains looked old and tattered. Mike, always the adventurous one, said we should check it out. "I don't know about this." I said, feeling uneasy. "Come on, it'll be fun," Sarah said, grabbing my arm. "It's just a show." Reluctantly, I followed them inside. The inside of the tent was dimly lit, with rows of old wooden seats. We sat down in the front row, and soon the lights dimmed even more, until it was almost completely dark. A single spotlight appeared on the stage, and a tall man in a black suit stepped into it. "Welcome to the show that never ends," he said in a deep, smooth voice. "Tonight, you'll witness something truly unforgettable." The man smiled, but there was something off about his smile. It was too wide, too perfect. I glanced at Sarah and Mike, but they seemed entranced by the man's words. The show began with strange acts. A clown appeared first, juggling knives that seemed too sharp, too dangerous. Then a magician came out and did tricks that didn't seem like tricks at all. He made objects disappear in ways that didn't make sense, and when they reappeared, they were different. I could feel the air growing colder with each act. Finally, the last act came. The lights flickered, and the tall man returned to the stage. "Now," he said, "for the grand finale." The tent went completely dark, and I heard something moving around us. The sound of footsteps, slow and heavy, came closer and closer. I tried to see, but it was too dark. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, and the audience was gone. The seats that were once full of people were now empty. What happened to everyone?" I whispered, my voice trembling. Mike and Sarah looked around, confused. "They were just here," Sarah said, her voice shaking too. We stood up and tried to leave, but the entrance was gone. The red curtains that had been there before were now solid walls of fabric. We were trapped. The tall man appeared again, this time standing right in front of us. "The show never ends," he said, his smile even wider now. "And neither do you." We tried to run, but no matter which direction we went, we ended up back in the same spot. The man's laughter echoed around us, and the walls of the tent seemed to close in. I don't know how long we've been here now. Time doesn't feel the same inside this place. The carnival is gone, but we're still stuck inside the tent, caught in a loop that never ends. We hear the man's voice sometimes, whispering from the shadows, reminding us that the show is still going on. And it will forever.